When I figured out what she needed, everything else was a lot easier. Bought a house for a car payment. I'm not proud that I binge watch TV shows, but I don't know if you've ever seen a show called Barter Kings.
The toughest part with dealing with Mark is trying not to laugh while you're making a deal with this guy.
Long story short, it's a guy that owns a pawn shop that loves to barter, and he starts with a $50 item from the pawn shop, and he trades it up to a $10,000 to $20,000 item over the course of 5 to 8 trades.
Okay.
He's trading his lesser value item for their more valuable item, but he's saying, let's not talk about your more valuable item. Let's talk about how this less valuable item is going to solve a problem in your life. If this solves a problem in your life, it doesn't matter how much that's worth.
It's not always about the money for people. Like when you translate the value is in money, the value is subjective. It's the value is something that solves a problem for you.
Yeah. So probably 2012, I'm walking through an REO and the cleaners were there. You know, the bank hires cleaners to come and make sure the property's looking good, right?
Yeah.
And I was just being friendly and I was just talking to them. So I've walked through the house. I'm doing my little checklist on what I think the house is going to take for repairs. The cleaner comes up to me and asks me a very awkward question and I won't ever forget. And she looks me straight in the eye and says, "Will you buy anything?" And I was like, I don't know what you're selling, but I mean, I like to buy houses, if that's what you're talking about. She's like, "Yes, I'm talking about houses. I just want to know, will you buy any type of house?" She says, "Well, I own a house on East 8th Street. And I go, "Oh, East 8th Street, 1400 block of East 8th Street?" And she says, "Yeah, I happen to own 2 or 3 rentals on the 1400 block of East 8th Street." And I'm not going to call it the nicest street in town, but it's not the worst street. But it's one of those streets with 70s built duplexes and triplexes and things like that. So I just happen to know it well. And she's like, "Well, I've got a house on the 1400 block of East 8th Street that I'd be interested in selling." I said, "Okay, great. Would you give me the address and I'll do a little research and I'll grab your phone number and then I can call you back and we can set up a time to meet there." And I probably wasn't the most efficient with my steps, but it's kind of how it played out. And so I do some research. And so the first thing is that I was embarrassed for myself that I own a couple properties on the street and I had never noticed the vacant, abandoned house on the street. Driven down the street hundreds of times. Never noticed it. I never noticed it because the bushes and the trees were growing up so much around this house that you literally couldn't see the house, and it was only 10 feet off the road.
Wow.
Literally kitty corner from a duplex that I own.
Wow.
And so I pull up at the house and I see it for the first time and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is this house." Okay. And so we walk in the house. I can see from inside, I can see through the roof. I can see daylight. It's just musty. There's no mold or anything, and the other unique thing is that it's legitimately a 350 square foot house.
Wow. That's small.
It's a small house. And so I met her at the property and I'm trying to find out what her motivation is. I'm trying to get out of her what she's interested in. And, why does she want to sell this house? She wants to sell it because I think she's finally emotionally gotten past the point of keeping her mom's house, the house she grew up in. And it's becoming more of a negative than a positive because she's paying the property taxes on this house. And it's vacant. Obviously, it's vacant. Nobody's touched it for 14, 15 years. And so I'm a pretty straightforward person. And I tell her that, I'm not a builder. I'm not a developer. I'm a landlord, and that's what I know best. And so the only way I know how to value this house, because legitimately, I feel like I'm an expert in my market, but there's no way to value this house. There's no land comps for East 8th Street, which is an area where, and so to give you an idea, the median price point of our area is $275,000. Okay. And so that's why this home, so small, so hard to comp. So I'm a landlord. So I say, as a 1-bedroom / studio, it's going to rent for $700 a month. And I like to buy things that hit the 1% rule. And I think it's going to take about $50,000 to $60,000 to fix up.
So you're offering her 10 or 20 grand.
Well, I didn't throw out a number yet. And I said, well, what do you think the number's worth? And she said, well, before the recession, an agent told me it was worth $80K. I said, okay, it probably could have been. I said, well, what do you think it's worth now? She said, I don't know. She said, the neighbor always wants to buy it. And he offered me $60,000. And I'm like, which neighbor? She's like, the next door neighbor. I said, you should go knock on their door after we're done and see if they want to buy it for $60,000, because that's more than I could pay in my wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And I say, why haven't you sold it to them yet? She says, well, every time that I call them up, they say they'll call me back, and they never call me back. And I go, they're probably not going to buy it.
Yeah.
She said, you're probably right. So I was talking to Dorothy, and I said, Dorothy, what are you going to do with the money if I buy this house? She said, well, Dave, I'm a cleaner, and I need reliable transportation. And right now I don't have reliable transportation. I have to get rides, and I've got a car, but it doesn't start half the time. I said, okay. So you want to go buy a used car, a nice used car? And she said, yeah, I'd like to go buy a nice used car. And I said, well, how much is that going to cost you? She said, I don't know. And I had just bought a nice used car, so I had these numbers in my mind. So I said, I think you could probably buy a nice used car if you put a couple $1,000s down. She said, yeah, I'd agree. And I said, okay, so maybe $5,000 down on a nice used car. And she said, yeah, that'd be good. And $200 a month for the next 3 years would pay off that car on a 36-month note. She's like, you're right. So are you saying that if I offer you $5,000 down and $200 a month for the next 3 years, that will solve a problem? You'll get a car. You'll have reliable transportation. You'll start making money, more money by cleaning more houses, and you won't have to pay the taxes on this property. She said, you're right. And I said, would you accept that as an offer to purchase? She said, I would. We shifted away from what is the house worth to what is her problem and how much is that worth to her?
Interesting. So many people can't get that through their head. They think it's money for people. It's money. And it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Solving a problem for them that you got to find out what the problem is. So kudos to you for digging in to find out her real problem.
When I figured out what she needed, everything else was a lot easier, and we were able to do the deal.
So you bought the house,
$5,000 down, $200 a month for the next 3 years.
No interest, obviously, just principal payments. Wow.
So it comes out to $12,200 total. We decided, let's just go put $50K into the house and fix it up and make it the nicest 350 square foot one bedroom with a 300 square foot garage on a full lot. We're just in the last week of construction now, and we've got it advertised for rent, and we'll probably take a lease at $850, and we'll go back to the bank. And it's probably, at this point, it's probably worth, I have no clue what an appraiser will tell me it's worth. Again, our median purchase price is $275, but there aren't 350 square foot houses every day of the week. So maybe it'll be worth 125, 150.
Wow. And you're into it 62 total.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's worth 125 to 150, but more so than that, it rents for $850 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Solid.
Bought a house for a car payment. Go watch an episode of Barter Kings. They canceled the show, but the old episodes are online, and you'll see a great negotiator, and he goes back to what that person wants and what they're getting out of what he's giving them, not what they're giving up.